Right, g'day and welcome to today's unboxing video. It's of the newly released LLW well wagon from SDS. It's an interesting project because it encompasses a few different products, primarily the well wagon itself, in a few different eras and liveries in both 3 and 4 letter codes. And also SDS have produced a X200 rail tractor, which was quite a common load that these wagons carry. The little rail tractors used to come up to Sydney for maintenance, and because of their short wheelbase and low speed and everything, when they had to be moved back out to the country depots, and that once they'd been had maintenance done to them, they were commonly just put on a well wagon attached onto a regular freight and dispatched back out into the country that way. So initially SDS were talking about just doing a resin X200 rail tractor. I think it actually predates the IDR one. So I think some of the initial photos that were around were of the Mark II X200, which is a much more angular looking locomotive. But then IDR bought out their ready to run one, and SDS then decided to go with the Mark I's, which are quite a different looking little unit. They come in a great range of liveries. They're fantastic little units, and SDS have put a lot of work into the load to the point where it's become a standalone product in its own right. So rather than just being a simple representation of the locomotive as a load for the well wagon, SDS have they're even producing a number of these in quite spectacular liveries, and they're available on their own. Now, all the X200s at this point are static. They're non-powered. We can have a closer look at them when we get them out of the box, but they are spectacular in their own right. So we've got the well wagon on its own. We've got the well wagon with the load. There's an example, that one there with the Candy X203. And then there's actually 4 different liveries that are also retailed on their own. So we'll go through each of the options, have a closer look. There's some interesting little accessories and that come with a couple of them to accommodate the IDR X200 if you wish to mount that also. So let's get started. We'll hop on over and have a look at the well wagon on its own. Okay, so we're going to start with the well wagon on its own, and I've got 3 different examples here, basically one of each colour. There are actually no, there is a 4th. There's a weathered one, which we'll see on the loaded wagon. So in this example here, I've got top one here, LLW 590. There was actually only 3 of these wagons made, and SDS have produced each of them, and in different versions. So LLW 590, representing the 50s and 60s era in wagon grey, and that one will be complete with buffers. Secondly, we've got LLW 750. They weren't running numbers, strangely enough. This is in the 1970s in the PTC blue livery, which comes up quite nicely. And the third one I've got for us to look at is Wagon 130, but in this instance it's in the 4-letter code, New South Wales 4-letter code of NWLF, and this represents the 1980s kind of era in the more common SRA red. So if we go back to the first one, back to the earliest of them. Now these wagons have only just had these boxes have only just had the shrink wrap taken off them. So what you're seeing is what I'm seeing for the very first time. So it comes in the fairly standard SDS box. They're nice heavy boxes, lift off windowed cover. Much nicer than the kind of the end loading type boxes that a lot of the manufacturers use. I quite like these ones. It's got a nice sturdy plastic cradle inside, and it's got a clear plastic cover that will just slip off like so. Move that over there. Now we can see the wagon itself is in there and wrapped in plastic, and if I just lift him out and put him down there flat, there he is in all his glory, LLW 590. And we can also see in the packet there is a small cradle. Now I'll come back to that cradle in a moment, because that is that's a little cradle. When these wagons were used for the X200s, they basically had a little unit with a couple of pieces of rail mounted on them, so that the rail tractor could sit on the rail without having to sit directly onto the base of the unit. These also carried other loads. I mean, there were you could have a steam locomotive boiler, or an unusual sized load of some description. So there's a number of things that they could in fact carry. The idea of the low section in the middle was, of course, to allow them to carry loads that were higher than normal, and help to spread the load onto the bogies. So nice, reasonably heavy wagon. These are actually got I think it's a die cast base there, with I believe it's an ABS plastic top on it there, with all of the detail. Buffers, air hoses, genuine KD couplers on these ones, and some nice free running wheels and everything like that. So that one's just in the standard grey, and as I said, there's also PTC blue ones, SRA red ones, and then when we get to one of the loaded wagons I've got there, there's like a weathered coloured unit. Now, in addition, in the packet, there's this little cradle. Now, with the X200s, the two batches of them, and I'll a little bit later on, I'll put two side by side so we can have a proper look at exactly how they differ. They were produced in two batches. There was 18 in total, and the first 6 were of this much more rounded, almost automobile-ish look. Quite an attractive little unit, and they were put together from spare parts from a lot of the stuff that the rowers had hanging around. And the chassis, in fact, is the inner bogie from a AD60 Garrett. I think they were some of the parts. Some of the 60 class Garretts were delivered in parts, but never put together. They initially ordered 50, and they only ever put 42 of them together. So they literally used the inner bogie as the chassis for these early Mark I X200s. And they have, off the top of my head, I think it's a 6'6" wheelbase. Now, the later versions, from X207 up to 218, which we refer to as a Mark II, they're a much more angular looking unit. They used the outer bogies on a AD60 Garrett, and they were 7 foot wheelbase. So there is a 6-inch difference in the wheelbase between the early ones that SDS have produced and the later ones like IDR produced. So in their wisdom, SDS, obviously when you buy the loaded wagon, it's already got the equivalent of this little sled with the wheel chocks and everything already mounted under the unit, and obviously it fits the 6'6" wheelbase on the Mark 1s. But what SDS have done is they've actually provided a 7-foot wheelbase version for you to use if you've got an IDR X200 rail tractor like this one that I've got sitting here. So if I wanted to mount this onto the wagon, I can place that down, and you probably need a little dab of glue or something like that. But then the IDR one will actually sit. Let's get him to balance onto the sled. It's a bit hard to see what I'm doing. There we go. Nice neat fit, in fact. And we can sit our Mark II X200 rail tractor up onto the wagon on its own little sled, just like that. So nice touch to include that extra little piece there, if you wish to mount one of the IDR Mark IIs. Now a little bit later on, when I open up one of the SDS ones, I'll put it beside this one, and you can see the quite radical difference in the units themselves. So yep. So that little extra piece comes in the packet if you wish to use it. So nice looking little wagon. Run them empty. You could run them with a wide range of loads, and there'd be quite an opening here for the kind of the cottage industry market to produce some third-party loads to go on these. So I'll pop this one back in its box, and I'll get the blue and the red one out just so that you can have a closer look at those. Okay, so we're back. I've just got the red and the blue ones out of their packets. You've got better things to do than to watch me fumble with plastic packets. These ones are of the later variety. LLW 750 here in the P2C blue. This has got no buffers, unlike the original one that we looked at, but this is still in the three-letter code. I think there's a difference in the bearings too. I think the early ones got plain bearings, and these later ones have got roller bearings. Nice, this one in the red. This is the 4-letter code, NWLF 130. Once again without buffers, but in the later SRA red, Indian red livery, that'd look awesome with the Candy rail tractor mounted onto it, for instance. So yep, nice little units. I said, well, they're well weighted. So because they've got a metal chassis, a cast metal chassis underneath there, they'll roll and track quite well on their own, even if they're empty. Or you can load them up with a whole stack of different things, or as we're about to see, you can buy them with the rail tractors already in place. So I'll pop these ones away, and we'll move on to the loaded ones, and then I'll show you the individual rail tractors on their own. Back in a moment. Now, just reiterating, with the wagons on their own, the unloaded wagons, there are in fact a total of 6 models available. I'll pop up a screenshot of the SDS website, and you can see that they're numbered. The pack numbers are LLW 001 through to 006. Various versions of either the wagon grey, the blue, the red, or a grime. 3-letter codes, 4-letter codes, with buffers, without buffers, plain bearings, roller bearings. So there's certainly enough there to cover basically any era that these wagons worked. So have a closer look at the SDS website and see which of the ones that you would like there. I've only got just the 3 examples here, but there are in fact a total of 6. Okay, now we're getting into the loaded wagons that SDS have produced. There's a total of 3 of these, packs 007, 008 and 009. There's all 3 wagons, wagon 130, 590 and 750. There's some 3-letter codes, there's some 4-letter codes in different colours, etc. The X200s that are represented here is X202 in the early Indian red. It's actually modelled in its original as introduced form, which I'll show you a little in a moment when we unbox it. There's some quite nice little modifications that have been done to it to show it in its original form. The second one is X205 in a deep Indian red. This one's mounted on LLW 130. Quite a smart looking locomotive with the crest on the side, deep Indian red body there, and a silver roof. And once again, we'll see some minor little differences there, because this is a later, this is a 1970s era. This particular model is selling incredibly well. A lot of people are liking that one. And the third one is NWLF 590, 1980s, with the candy, with X203. X203 sat around behind Shallora workshops there for a while. I saw it on a number of occasions, and it's now down at the Yass Town Railway Museum down in southern New South Wales, because it worked the Yass tramway there from the Yass Junction station around into the town quite a bit after it displaced, I think it was the 13 class steamers. So this will be quite popular also. They're great little units. These, as I said before, these X200s were built using spare parts. They had the bogies from the Garretts. I think the side windows came off 36 class locos, steam locomotives. The brake controls and everything, they were off the steam engines also. So they really were a bitzer. But these first 6 are quite different to the later 12, well, the Mark IIs, and these are my personal favourites. So I'll get each of these out. I'll show you actually unboxing the first one here. I'll probably do the other ones off camera, to save seeing my big fat fingers getting things out of boxes all the time. So standard top, the same as the other wagons that we looked at, much the same set up internally. Lift him out, get the box out of the way, take the clear cover off, like so, and this lovely soft silicone type plastic that SDS use. I can just carefully lift him out and set him down. I'll just move that out of our way. These are glorious. Beautiful little units. Same wagon as before. the actual rail tractor itself is again sitting on its little cradle that's purpose built for it, because this one's got the slightly shorter wheelbase. Now underneath there's actually two screws. If you can see, there's a couple of screws there just either side of the SDS logo, which of course I'm holding upside down. Those two screws actually hold the cradle into position. So if you wished to remove the rail tractor for whatever reason, you would have to unhook this delightful little fine chain, which is then currently looped through the lifting eyes, the lifting hooks on the front of the loco there. You could pull that out, take those couple of screws out, and the loco and its little cradle would just lift straight away from the wagon, if you wish to do that. Now, this particular unit, X202 in the Indian red, or light Indian red, I'm not going to get into the technicalities of colour. This is modelled as introduced. A couple of things to note. There's a nice big air reservoir just underneath the footplate there on one side of the loco, but not on the other. That side of it there doesn't have it, but that was the way that they were the way they were introduced. I think on the later ones they moved that air reservoir and put it up onto the footplate. I think it's sat in behind the side panels there. The other thing to note, which you'll see on the later models, is on the roof here. It's reasonably flat. I mean, it's got a slight camber either side there, just for the water to run off, but it's a flat plate. Now these engines, I'd have to look it up, but the motor that was in them was replaced at some stage, and as luck would have it, the replacement motor didn't actually fit. The top of the hood here was just slightly too low, and the motor wouldn't fit. So what they did was, on the later ones, and SDS have modelled it quite well, there's like a little raised panel on the top of it there on the long hood to accommodate the additional height of the replacement engine that was inside them. So beautifully printed. These got little dummy couplers which don't have the tangs, which I think is a nice little thing. All beautifully printed, and that on the front. The headlight and the marker lights on these do not work because they are a static model, but SDS have gone all out and produced a top quality injection molded locomotive that could be powered in the future. There's nothing to stop it, but it's certainly a lot more involved than I thought that they were going to do. I thought it was just going to be just a basic representation of the loco, but it really looks the part. It's even got internal details. It's even got the driver's console and everything like that inside of it there. So no expense has been spared. So they come up really, really well. What I'll do is let me grab the other two loaded models out of their boxes, and we can line them up and have a look at them side by side. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so we've got all these out of their boxes, and they look just spectacular. So from left, we've got X202 in the lighter Indian red, as introduced with its little unique features. I said the air tank, and then on this long hood, there's no protrusion. On the other two, X205 in the deep Indian red, if we bring that in, you'll actually see there's a panel there, which was on the prototype to accommodate the slight increase in the height of the motor inside of it, and they don't have the that external air tank. And then the last one here is X203 in the candy. Just looks good enough to eat. They're fantastic renditions of the locos, and SDS are to be commended for the amount of work and that they've put in there. Really well done. Really well done to the team at SDS. The only other thing that I've got to show you is the standalone locos, which might be easier if I just pull those out of the boxes and line them up to have a look. One other thing we'll just quickly do, it's a good comparison here of the Mark 1 and Mark 2. Let me just move those guys out of the way. The differences between a Mark 1 and a Mark 2 X200. They're the same length. They're basically the same size. There's no great differences there. 6 inches different in the wheelbase, which is negligible, but you can see all the lovely curves and everything that they had on the initial 6. They must have quickly realised that was time consuming to build and maintain if there was any accident damage and stuff like that. So the Mark IIs, which was 207 through to 218, went to a much simpler, angular type of look. It's amazing to think, even just a few years ago that we would ever get any of these locos in ready to run. They're unusual. They only existed in the workshops or shunting around some of the country yards, and that the vast majority of the travelling public never saw them. But we're very thankful to the manufacturers and that they've gone to the trouble of producing these very, very high quality models. Let me move all these out of the way and I'll show you the remaining 4 standalone units that are available. Back in a moment. So, last but certainly not least, we have the standalone X200 rail tractors. Now, there's 4 different versions of these available. We'll see in a minute. There's X201, this is pack 01 in the 1960s Indian red. There's X202 in the 1980s yellow and green. There's pack 3 is X204 in a deep Indian red with L7s. And the last one is pack 4, which is X206 in the 1990s red and black livery. So if we look at these ones individually, if we go back to pack number 1, and we have, there's the unit there. Now these standalone units come with their little cradle that you can maybe just see underneath there, but they're also mounted just using the screws. They're mounted onto this cute little checker plate stand, really just to keep them safe and that, because a lot of these are just going to be on display. But you're perfectly able to undo the 2 screws underneath there, lift it off, and you could easily place it onto the track, have it sitting in a siding or in the workshops or wherever you wanted. So X201 light Indian red, the original Indian red, nice crest on the side, little yellow line along the foot plate. Like the other one we've already looked at, it has the original hood there without the raised section. And if we have a look around on the other side, they're a little harder to see because it's black in this instance. It's got that that air tank underneath. So the main difference between this one and the one that was mounted on the wagon is the variation in the paint, in that this one's got the yellow line and the black below the footplate, whereas the other one had the Indian red all the way down. So quite a nice little unit for the earlier models, 1960s era, that one. The next one is probably my favourite. It's the 1980s yellow and green on X202. Never got to see this one. I've been lucky enough to see most of the X200s. Never got to see 202 because it was scrapped, I think, late 80s. And there's one of the others, I think it's 211 or something, that I've never seen, but I'll put a link to my own website, and I've got photographs of the majority of the X200s in all their different liveries. This is just the absolute duck's guts. It's beautifully printed. Even the builder's plate on the side there's got the writing and that printed onto it. You can see on this one, in fact, because of the colour, it makes it a bit easier to see, there's an air tank tucked in there behind that panel, and that was the air tank that took the place of the air tank that was along on the underneath the running board there before. So that's a beauty with the Waratah and everything, interior detail. They come up really, really well. So third one that we've got to look at is the 1970s and 80s Deep Indian Red. This is X204. This actually wore quite a few liveries over its lifetime. And I think it's the only one that I'm aware of that went from Indian Red. No, sorry, went from, Indian Red to Candy and was actually repainted back into Indian Red. It's, I think it's up at Dorrigo now, but I've got photographs of it in 1999 at Warhope, and it was in a custom Indian Red scheme. But photographs prior to that showed it in a variation of the Candy scheme. So there's not too many locos that have gone from Candy back to Indian Red, except in preservation. Once again, you can see the incredible detail there on the builder's plate. You can actually read the writing there. These were built at the water supply workshops. Nice L7 in a duck egg there. And it's even got the yellow stripes there on the radiator. So later version, same as the yellow one there. It's got the raised section, air tank tucked down in the inside there. And then the fourth one is in fact the first X200 that I ever saw. And I ran into this one, metaphorically speaking, out the back of Clyde Wagon Works. Would have been back in the early 90s. It was numbered 106 at that stage, but in this quite distinctive red and black. There was a number of these that wore unusual colour schemes because they were tied to the workshops. They didn't necessarily get painted in the standardised colour schemes of the day. So things like this one in the red and black and the yellow there for 202. It was sometimes just at the whim of the manager of the workshops or even just the staff there. They'd give them a quick paint over. So there's more liveries on these 6 than on the other 12, on the Mark IIs. So there's a lot of variations that could be done in the future. As I said, all of these 4, they all come on these little stand, but a couple of screws there and they would lift straight off. There's nothing else keeping them in place there. So you could easily have that one sitting around on your layout. A number of these also got numbered to X106, 100 type numbers, not to be confused with the much smaller X100 rail tractor. But it was a minor variation in the braking, and in some instances the station staff were actually allowed to drive these around the yard and that to shunt without having to have full qualified drivers, because they had a simplified version of the brake system. So there we have it. There's the 4 standalone units. You've got the other, as we said before, you've got 6 empty wagons. There's 3 loaded wagons, plus the additional 4 standalone static models, which really should cover just about everyone's era. I don't think there's much else that I can cover. I'll throw a few photographs of some prototypes and that in. Go back to the SDS website for any other details that I might have missed or cocked up. These are available now. Thank you to SDS for getting us early access to these, to video and to photograph. The pre-orders, as of the recording, today's the 21st of January 2024. Most of the pre-orders, just about all of the pre-orders, are packed and will be in the post tomorrow on the Monday, so you should be getting those by the end of the week. Retailers, some of the retailers have already received their stock. Any of the retailers probably interstate and that, or further afield, will be getting their stock once again by the end of the week. So these are available now, ready for sale. I think they'll go quite quickly. The pre-orders have been quite steady with them. So hop on in, grab them before they go, and we'll see what else SDS and the other manufacturers come out with in the near future. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel. I'll be doing a few more of these unboxings. They're not reviews, they're unboxings. I'll be doing a few more of these on some new stuff that's going to be released very soon. So subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you're a member of the AMRG group on Facebook. There's also my EMU electric multiple unit group on Facebook that you'll find. You can join that also, and we'll keep you up to date with what's coming, what's arrived, and hopefully give you some close-up videos and photos like we've done today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.